Hello and welcome to Sibos 2020 and a conversation with a person at the helm of SmartStream Technologies, Haytham Kaddoura. Now in this clip, we're going to be discussing the elephant in the room, that is COVID-19, and the impact that it has had on SmartStream as a technology firm and a service provider, and also on the capital markets in general. We'll also be looking at how the pandemic has accelerated the move to the cloud, and also how cloud-based technologies offer financial services firms something of an insurance policy against any future operational and technology disruptions. Finally, we'll also be talking about a little bit of magic that has emerged recently in the form of a new cloud-based product from SmartStream's Innovation Lab in Vienna. But before we get to all that, I'd like to welcome Haytham. Good to see you again, and thanks for making the time to shoot today's clip, Haytham.
Thank you, Victor. It's always good seeing you, and it feels like the world has changed massively since we last met.
It's crazy, isn't it? We were together in Sibos 2019 in London, and things have changed beyond all recognition. Anyway, the last time we spoke was in May, and you were in lockdown in Dubai. I can see from that very impressive structure behind you that you're still in Dubai. Haytham, how are things? What is the situation like in Dubai?
It's been pretty much normal. I mean, Dubai have sort of managed it well.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from seeing people are really social distancing. They're taking it seriously. If you don't notice the masks on people's faces, you think it's a very normal day.
Yeah.
Traffic jams back on the streets, what have you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, unlike I was in London earlier in August, and it's still quite quiet. So
yeah.
Dubai has sort of managed well, and I hope they continue to do so.
Yeah, by the look of all the media reports, it looks like London is going to remain quiet for quite some time to come. I think maybe possibly the end of the year. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the challenges that SmartStream faced as a result of COVID-19, the pandemic, and how the company was able to address those challenges, especially in the early days of lockdown. How did SmartStream cope, in your opinion, with the challenges thrown up by COVID?
Honestly, Victor, I think we've coped better than I personally expected. And we've always had our BCP plans, and we were ready to move a specific office offsite or a specific part of our operation offsite. This was a total overhaul, and thankfully we were ready. I mean, we had the infrastructure to really mobilize our people, and I'd say within a less than 3-day time frame, everybody was working quite efficiently out of their homes.
Yes.
Of course, there were some teething problems, for example, in remote areas where in India, where there's not such a good network connectivity. We had to ensure that our team members are supplied with the proper dongles and whatever extra means to allow them to log in, create a comfortable working environment as much as possible as we evolved. So we've handled it well. Of course, our operations in New York, London, everybody was well kitted out beforehand.
Yes. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the company's primary focus right now in terms of navigating these uncertain times. That's kind of the first part of the question. So from an organizational perspective, what's really important for SmartStream right now? And then as chief executive of the business, what's on your radar? Can you give us a kind of a sense of what's occupying a lot of your time right now?
Personally, I believe, from my own perspective, I'd say COVID is not really out, and it's anybody's guess when things will sort of start. I don't want to say normalizing, but at least stabilizing into a new norm. Mm-hmm. And my priorities is to ensure that our clients keep on getting served until we reach that point in time, whether that takes 3 months, 6 months, or some say end of 2021. We need to keep pushing the business, better serving our clients, ensuring that we are skilled up where we need to be. I mean, one of our primary challenges has been today actually onboarding new people.
Mm-hmm.
especially it's not a normal environment where somebody walks into the office, you send them up with a training team, and they have a bunch of colleagues that they can work with. It's a different challenge now. A lot of the people development and integration is happening offline or remotely, sorry, online remotely,
Mm-hmm.
and ensuring that the technology actually reaches them, which is also one of the challenges we had at the beginning, right? A lot of places you couldn't get courier services out to remote locations because of the lockdowns. So this is from an operational perspective. From a business perspective, it's more related to keeping up with what the COVID has really caused. For example, a lot of the regulations that were due to roll out this year were pushed to next year.
Yeah.
Subsequently, a lot of the clients had their items or targets on their agenda for this year that were pushed out. Mm-hmm. Combined with what we're releasing recently in Sibos, some of the new developments we've been working on, and ensuring they reach market and they get the proper exposure they would normally have.
Mm-hmm. Well, talking about business as usual and ensuring operational resilience. I remember a conversation I had with Roland Brandley, one of your colleagues, and he talks specifically about service level agreements, the SLAs that SmartStream kind of underpins and bakes into its products. And he said there wasn't a single service level agreement infraction during the whole of the the early part of COVID-19, and also the delivery timeframes and the frequency with product upgrades and the development cycles, etc. That wasn't affected at all during the early days, and it just shows how quickly the company was able to what was then the new normal, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in terms of servicing clients, a lot of our clients were positively surprised that we performed much better than much larger organizations, and in some cases a lot better of their internal operations, mm-hmm. in terms of being able to cope with the change, continue the progress on servicing them, especially within our managed service operations. The efficiencies in we managed to have our clients achieve were quite outstanding. I mean, I can name off the top of my head at least 3 tier 1 institutions, mm-hmm. who have heavy managed services involvement with us, commanding us for going above and beyond what their expectations were.
Yeah, good. Okay, let's talk a little bit about we referenced the new normal. Let's talk about the new normal from your client's perspective. Are you having different conversations with them about their operating models compared to before the pandemic emerged? And if so, kind of, if those conversations are different, what is different about them? What has changed? What has the pandemic kind of changed in terms of the conversations and the needs and demands across the industry?
And one thing for sure, Victor, I mean, these discussions are evolving. Our initial set, if you look around the March-April timeframe where everybody's going home and they required us to garner support, and there were, of course, restrictions on our PS teams being able to roll down at the client side and implement the solution. Now it's sort of evolving to, depending on the geography, how can we schedule, when can we start scheduling for people to be on the ground? Mm-hmm. And in other geographies, they're mandating, actually requiring people to be on the ground. It's evolving, and I say as the pandemic's shifts across the world, institutions are reacting. But on an overarching perspective, I've seen heavier demand from our clients in sourcing out increasing functions to our managed services operations. There's definitely a higher degree of willingness to test new technologies.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking what's coming out through our artificial intelligence from our labs, what have you, institutions that typically had rigor process to onboard newer technologies now are more willing to test. Simply, I think in certain circumstances, the option of having things done inside their businesses is curtailed by people being away.
Yeah.
Second, there's a higher urgency to increase efficiency and be able really to push business out where possible, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. Let's continue on that theme and talk a little bit about COVID-19, how it's accelerated the move to the cloud. There's no doubt about it. Cloud is kind of, it's the kind of flavor of the month right now. Everybody's looking to cloud-based services, cloud-native applications, etc., cloud-delivered services. So we see that there's been a massive acceleration in people. If they were kind of on the fence, now they're definitely looking to embrace cloud for obvious reasons. But let's talk a little bit about how COVID has also challenged companies and people in terms of their ability to network and connect and to be productive. How are various technologies helping to address those challenges? And maybe you wanted to kind of reference as well SmartStream in terms of what are the tools that SmartStream has used to help with collaboration internally, ensure that people are connected and don't feel kind of out on a limb and out of touch with everybody else. How has technology allowed the business to stay kind of integrated, tight, and well connected?
I mean, definitely there's a host of new technologies that came around. Internally, of course, if you recall, we launched SmartStream AI reconciliation engine, SmartStream Air, towards the end of last year. And that was a pure cloud native solution. So it was built from the ground up based on cloud technologies. Of course, since then that has evolved from a single cloud provider to a multi-cloud providers, and that we're allowing now new technologies that allow a particular client to move amongst different providers. And in some instances, what we're seeing in different institutions that are adopting private clouds. So that mobility is necessary in any future-proof solution today. Internally, if I look at also what we're doing on our other platforms, the reconciliation, corporate actions, collateral management, they're all moving to cloud-based solutions or interfaces.
Yes. And this isn't a case, having spoken to Roland about this, it's not a case of basically just saying we're going to move something into the cloud. But you are redeveloping these as cloud-native platforms so that you get the intuitive user experience, you get the incredible performance with as with cloud-native applications, etc. Right? Rather than just cloudifying an existing application.
100%. It's not a band-aid solution in any way of imaginations. We are rebuilding from scratch, re-examining processes, re-examining how transactions match, how transactions flow through a system, purposefully built from a cloud perspective. Because technologies have changed, right? And you need to build a more user-friendly approach. The way the technology has to be much more intuitive, it has to be much more efficient, faster. So these are normal, what we believe to be normal client expectations today. And I'm not doing anyone a favor by saying my technology is cloud native. If it's not, I wouldn't have a future, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Let's talk a little bit about this new version of SmartStream Air, SmartStream Air 2. It's just emerged from the innovation lab led by Andreas Berner in Vienna. And it involves some really interesting AI technology. Do you want to talk a little bit about what it is, what it does, and how it's going to move the reconciliations industry forward?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, similar to Air, I think what we're currently labeling as SmartStream Affinity, which is our Air 2.0 product,
Yes.
is I believe to be a disruptor in the sense that it does all the basis of what an artificial intelligence does in looking at in terms of looking at reconciliations and trying to do intelligently match. The
Yes.
difference with this is it's driven by observational. It's built on an observational behavior, so it actively learns from not only what the users are doing, but learns from also what the users are not doing and tries to build the linkages. So it exponentially moves up the intelligence built into its engines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things, having spoken to Andreas extensively about this, one of the key benefits of Affinity or SmartStream Air 2 is that Air 1 was very much a rules-based engine, right? You created the rules, it followed the rules, it produced incredibly fast results based on those rules. What Affinity does is it makes its own rules as it goes along. It based on observations, based on watching what human users are doing, working out what actually works and what doesn't work, and it creates its rules so that the actual rules part of it is far less kind of long-winded compared to the first version of Air, right? And so that's what makes it so fast. It creates its rules as it goes along.
100%. I mean, the difference between the original version of Air and what Affinity now is that Air built its own rules, Air 1.0,
Yep.
based on historical data. So it learned from the past, right?
Yes.
And built the matching rules, and the users validated them. So it was able to pick up and quickly learn from what has previously happened based on large amounts of data, right? And the more data you pumped into it historically, the more efficient the processing becomes. This is a more proactive, live observational platform. So it sees what they're doing today. So a user does a transaction today, it starts reacting, and pretty much the next day, it's in a position to start recommending matches based on what they've done or what they haven't done. Yeah. It doesn't need a massive history to learn what needs to be done, yes. Which yes. is first in the industry. I mean, as far as I know.
Yep. Good. Okay. Haytham, let's leave it there. Thank you very much. You've been fantastic. What I would like to let viewers of this clip know is that there is a white paper that we have produced on SmartStream Air 2 or Affinity. That is free to download off the SmartStream website. You'll be able to find it on the SmartStream homepage or somewhere on the SmartStream website. We're not quite sure exactly where it's going to be placed right now, but it is free to download if you need or if you would like any more information about that. That just leaves me to say thank you very much to Haytham for your time. Haytham, thank you.
Thank you.
And I look forward to catching up with you, hopefully under more normal circumstances sometime in the future.
I hope so.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.